Video opens with archival footage of classic two-stroke motorcycles, buzzing loudly and leaving a faint trail of blue smoke. Quick cuts between different models, focusing on the raw, energetic feel of the era. Narrator ** Welcome to Ude Repo. If you've ever been around older motorcycles, you know the sound. That high-pitched, almost frantic scream of a two-stroke engine at full throttle. It's a sound that defined an entire generation of motorcycling, a symphony of mechanical simplicity and raw power. These weren't just bikes, they were buzzing, smoke-breathing beasts that offered an unmatched thrill. But look around today. Where did they all go? You'll see them on the dirt track, you might find a classic at a bike show, but on the public road, the two-stroke is an extinct species. So, what happened? Why did this incredibly simple and potent engine design just vanish from our streets? The answer lies in a battle of mechanics, pollution, and the relentless march of environmental laws. To understand why the two-stroke was banned, we first need to understand what made it so special and so different from the engine that replaced it, the four-stroke. Transition to a clean, animated graphic. Two simplified engine cylinders appear side by side, labeled two-stroke and four-stroke. Narrator * At its core, an engine is an air pump that creates power by igniting a mix of fuel and air. The magic is in how it completes its power cycle. The names two-stroke and four-stroke tell you everything you need to know. It's all about how many movements, or strokes, the piston makes to complete one power-producing cycle. Let's start with the dominant design of today, the four-stroke engine. This is what powers almost every modern car and motorcycle. Imagine a four-act play happening inside the cylinder, over and over, thousands of times a minute. The four-stroke animation begins to cycle through its four stages. Text labels pop up for each stroke: intake, compression, power, exhaust. Narrator * Act 1 is the intake stroke. The piston moves down, and the intake valve opens, drawing a fresh mixture of air and fuel into the cylinder. It's like the engine taking a deep breath. Next comes the compression stroke. The intake valve closes, and the piston travels back up, squeezing that air-fuel mixture into a tiny, highly volatile space. This compression is key to getting a powerful explosion. The animation shows the spark plug firing. Narrator * Act 3 is the big one, the power stroke. The spark plug ignites the compressed mixture, causing a massive explosion that violently forces the piston back down. This is the bang that turns the crankshaft and sends power to the wheels. This is the moment that actually moves your vehicle forward. Finally, we have the exhaust stroke. The piston moves back up one more time, but now the exhaust valve opens, pushing all the burnt gases out of the cylinder to make way for the next cycle. Intake, compression, power, exhaust. 4 strokes for one power impulse. It's a clean, efficient, and controlled process. The animation now shifts focus to the two-stroke cylinder. The design is visibly simpler, with no valves, only ports or openings in the cylinder wall. Narrator * Now, let's look at the two-stroke. This engine is a masterpiece of minimalist engineering. It achieves the same goal of intake, compression, power, and exhaust in just 2 strokes of the piston, one up and one down. It does this by combining steps in a very clever, but also very messy, way. As the piston moves up, it does 2 things at once. It compresses the air-fuel mixture already in the top of the cylinder, getting it ready for ignition. Simultaneously, its upward movement creates a vacuum in the crankcase below, pulling in a fresh charge of air and fuel through an intake port. The two-stroke animation shows the piston reaching the top, the spark plug firing, and the piston being pushed down. Narrator * Then comes the combined power and exhaust stroke. The spark plug ignites the mixture, and bam! The piston is slammed downwards. This is the power stroke. But as it travels down, it uncovers the exhaust port on the side of the cylinder wall. The hot, burnt gases rush out. Almost immediately after, the descending piston uncovers another port, the transfer port. This allows the fresh air fuel mix that was waiting in the crankcase to rush up into the cylinder, pushing out the last of the old exhaust gases and refilling the chamber for the next cycle. 1 upstroke, 1 downstroke. That's it. a power stroke for every single revolution of the crankshaft, compared to the 4 strokes power stroke every 2 revolutions. Split screen showing both engines animating. The 2-stroke is firing twice as often as the 4-stroke at the same RPM. Narrator asterisk. This fundamental difference is why 2 strokes were so legendary for their power-to-weight ratio. They were simpler, with far fewer moving parts, no complex valve trains, camshafts, or timing belts. This made them lighter, cheaper to build, and easier to work on. And because they produced power twice as often, a 2-stroke engine of the same size could theoretically produce twice the power of a 4-stroke. This made them perfect for applications where weight was the enemy and power was king: dirt bikes, chainsaws, and of course, the screaming road bikes of the 70s and 80s. But this elegant simplicity came at a huge cost, which brings us to the infamous blue smoke. Cut to footage of a 2-stroke bike starting up, a visible puff of bluish smoke coming from the exhaust. Narrator asterisk. Remember how the 4-stroke is a clean, separated process? The oil that lubricates the engine stays in the bottom, separate from the fuel. The 2-stroke, however, has a dirty little secret. Because the fresh fuel-air mix passes through the crankcase, you can't have a reservoir of oil down there. The fuel would just wash it away. So, how do you lubricate a 2-stroke's moving parts? You mix the oil directly into the gasoline. This is called a total loss lubrication system. As the fuel-air-oil mixture lubricates the piston and crankshaft, a significant portion of that oil gets burned along with the fuel during combustion. Show an animated graphic of oil droplets mixed with the fuel, burning in the cylinder, and exiting through the exhaust port. Narrator asterisk. That blue haze trailing behind every 2-stroke bike? That's the smoke of burning lubricating oil. This created a huge pollution problem. The exhaust of a 2-stroke engine is filled with unburnt hydrocarbons, carbon monoxide, and fine particulate matter from the oil. But that wasn't even the worst of it. Think back to how the 2-stroke works. When the fresh fuel mix rushes in, it's supposed to push the old exhaust out. But this process, called scavenging, is incredibly inefficient. There's a moment of overlap where both the intake and exhaust ports are open at the same time. Animation clearly shows some of the fresh, unburnt fuel-air mixture, represented by green gas, escaping directly out of the exhaust port along with the burnt gases, represented by gray gas. Narrator asterisk. During this overlap, a significant portion of the fresh, unburnt fuel-air mixture escapes straight out the exhaust pipe without ever being ignited. Up to 30% of the fuel in a classic 2-stroke could be wasted this way. So not only are you burning oil, you're also spewing raw, unburnt gasoline into the atmosphere. For decades, this was just the price you paid for that lightweight power. But as the world grew more environmentally conscious, the writing was on the wall. Governments around the world began implementing stricter and stricter emissions standards. Show a montage of newspaper headlines and government documents related to emissions laws like the Clean Air Act and Euro 1, 2, 3 standards. Narrator asterisk. 4 4-stroke engines. Meeting these new laws was a challenge, but a manageable one. Engineers could add catalytic converters, which clean up exhaust gases. They developed fuel injection for more precise fuel delivery. The inherent separation of lubrication and combustion in a 4-stroke made it adaptable. But for the classic 2-stroke, these regulations were a death sentence. How do you use a catalytic converter when you are constantly feeding it a diet of oil that would clog it up and destroy it? How do you stop raw fuel from escaping out the exhaust when that's a fundamental part of the engine's design? Show a final shot of a classic 2-stroke bike parked alone in a garage, looking like a museum piece. Narrator asterisk. Manufacturers tried. They developed complex direct injection systems to try and solve the problem, but these added weight, cost, and complexity, negating the very advantages that made the 2-stroke so appealing in the first place. The simple, raw, and powerful engine was simply too dirty for the modern world. So, the 4-stroke, with its cleaner, more controlled, albeit more complex, design, took over the streets. The scream of the 2-stroke was replaced by the deeper, more civilized thrum of the 4-stroke. It was the end of an era, a necessary sacrifice for cleaner air. The very things that made the two-stroke a legend, its simplicity, its power cycle, its total loss lubrication, were the very things that led to its downfall. End screen with channel logo. Narrator asterisk, what do you think? Do you miss the sound and smell of the old two-strokes, or are you happy with the cleaner, more efficient engines of today? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into engine history, make sure to subscribe to Ude Repo for more. Thanks for watching.